I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I'm supposed to be. Oh, my soul is welcome here. Oh, my soul is welcome here.
Well, it is great to be here. I may have mentioned that, but I'd like to say it again. It is just so good to be here and be in the presence with everyone. I had to take a moment to drink it all in again as we prayed. It was just wonderful to be here. I've missed you. I've been in this great space, but I've still missed you, which just made me realize how blessed and lucky I am that I get to be in this community with you and I get to share. And so, aloha and mahalo, which means thank you. Mahalo for this wonderful opportunity I had to recharge and to get into this space of kind of lifting off the day to day so that something new could come in. And when you do that, it can be overwhelming. The new is always there, right there at the ready. And so if you have felt like a weary traveler lately, I'd like you to take a deep breath. And I'd like you to just allow some of that heaviness or those cares just to let them float and let them drift away a little bit while we have this conversation. Today, I know I've made it very clear that my heart is full. But I think the reason is that everywhere I went, there were beautiful people just having wonderful things happen. And what's funny is at one point I was at Disney World, the happiest place on earth. There was a lot of grumpy people there. And for some reason, I did just that. It just brought me even more joy. Like, I wasn't happy they were grumpy, but I just thought, that is hilarious. They are taking life way too serious. And I went to Disney Hollywood, which has the new Star Wars exhibit. And if you're a Star Wars fan, make the trek. It's worth it. I stood right in front of the Millennium Falcon and thought, yep, I've made it. This is good. This is good. So it was really great to have that transformation and be transformed and to a new place and to be reminded of all the fun that was there. And one of the things, for those who don't know, my last name is Vorst. And one of the things that my family always says is, may the Vorst be with you. And so we often just shared that and we laughed and had a good time. And I was there with some good friends. And so it was a nice experience. One of the things that we did is this journey that I was taking was actually something we had planned for a long time. For those who don't know, I have a dear friend, Ward, who turned 50 this year, and he'd been to every state in the union, and he decided he wanted to go to his last state for his 50th, and that was Hawaii. So we went to Maui to celebrate his 50th birthday, and it was a really great week together. It was Ward and I, and then my friend Johnny. Several of you may know Johnny by his drawings online. He's always the one who does the comic drawings and stuff. So it was quite a time because Johnny is also in school to be a librarian. He's getting his master's, and he had to do a small movie. And he was like, I'm going to stay and do my movie thing. And Ward and I actually came back and kind of saw him. And here is our dear friend in a full Spider-Man costume. And I thought, yep, I'm living the life. I walk in, my friend is Spider-Man. That's perfect. But he was just getting kids excited about being there and being a part of the library. So it was fun. But after our week together, I stayed on a little longer with two of our good friends that live in Maui, and they live actually up in the mountains of Kula. And I don't know a lot about Maui. I didn't do a lot of my homework. I just kind of went and experienced. But Kula is this beautiful mountain, and it's where Oprah lives. And I got to see Oprah's guest house. Yeah, I know. You can touch me later. And And it was just beautiful. It was almost like being in Ireland, though, because there was all this pastoral rolling hills of pastures and cows and horses and all those little, like, stone walls just lined the roads, and it was just beautiful. And Kula was cooler, which was a welcomed breeze to me. And if you stood at their driveway, you could see both bays of Maui. And so it was just beautiful to be surrounded by all this lush greenery, these bougainvillea bushes that I just love, and just these beautiful, this water everywhere. And every night I would stand and watch the sunset and see just how vast the ocean is. And I felt how small I was. And it was just so interesting, because then what started happening is I started out feeling small and tiny until all of a sudden my awareness would flip, and I wasn't just the body of Natalie anymore. And I was getting this feeling of huge awareness. And so I didn't miss a sunset, because that awareness started to feel really good. And it was interesting to see an awareness connect to this endless deep blue and just ride that wave a little bit with it. And so when I thought about coming back here, I knew I'd be talking about the power of understanding. And I just had to talk about how the ocean became my great teacher in understanding oneness. I mean, here at Unity, we often use the symbol of an ocean as this understanding of God, and how we are an expression, an individual expression, like a wave on the ocean. And I was quickly reminded of that old movie, Good Will Hunting, where Robin Williams' character says to Matt Damon's character, "You can read a book about the Sistine Chapel, but do you know what it's like to stand under the ceiling and look up and smell the paint?" Now, I had been to the ocean before, and I had waded in about up to here because, yeah, I like to take risks. I'm super brave. And I didn't get bit by one jellyfish. But I had never really just been in the ocean. And it had been a long time since I had been over the ocean. And so when I was flying out, I flew out during the day, and I kept looking down, and I could see these like white speckles in the ocean. And I kept thinking, are those white caps? Can I really see them at 30,000 feet in this ocean? And so I checked and inquired, and yeah, that's what I was seeing. And I flew for hours and hours over nothing but water. And I thought to myself, who were the brave souls that got on a boat and just went? I just thought, I am not living my life at that pace. That is a huge courage. Because I'm not talking just even these big wood boats, but some of these people went out on what were more like catamarans. And they just went for it. And they had no idea there was an island out there. So these were the thoughts I was pondering. These were the things that went through my head as I'm flying over the ocean. And these are the things that I thought about as far as like, I wanted to know the ocean. But to be fair, I was a little afraid of the ocean. I have a really irrational fear of sharks, probably from movies I've watched. And I'm a mostly landlocked girl here in Ohio. So it's ridiculous that I would fear a shark. I mean, I'm pretty sure they haven't sighted any in Lake Erie recently. But I just couldn't help but keep comparing that journey to how I live my life and the understanding I have of life. And I just really had this amazing experience in the ocean. Charles Fillmore defines understanding as the ability of the mind to apprehend and realize the laws of thought and the relation of ideas to one another. That's in the revealing word. And I just kept doing that sort of thing where I was relating life in general to this experience with the ocean. And what's really funny is that I say that I've been in the ocean because I've walked out from the shore and I've only gone as high as my neck, really. And that way your feet are still on the ground. If the wave comes, you might have to jump a little bit, but your ducks are pretty much still in a row. You're not getting swept out to sea. You could spot, I thought, I could still try to get away from a shark that's too shallow of water for it. And, I had put all my justifications together and just really pretty ducks in a row. Okay, this has all been rationalized. I'm safe to do this. And it's funny how, our Newtonian brain is constantly trying to predict and control our surroundings. That's what it does. It's kind of what it's just designed to do, to kind of keep us safe. And it's interesting to think about how I thought I'm living life, and I'm going to go offshore, and I'm going to head toward deeper waters, but only so far. Only so far. Only enough where I felt safe. And I thought I was controlling my surroundings. Do you guys want to laugh with me on that? I mean, controlling our surroundings, isn't that something we pretend to do all the time? How many people have looked at the news and been like, we got to do something? And that's not a bad thing. It's just that, are you really controlling your surroundings? I realized that when I was taking this trip and I was kind of being contemplative, I realized that when my brother Jeff, who passed away in a car accident 26 years ago, when that happened, my response to that was a form of hypervigilance. I became hypervigilant, thinking I could control surroundings. And I remember even pulling into a parking lot one day, and I was with Julie, who does not have a lot of hypervigilance. And I didn't park in the closest spot to the door. I parked 10 down. She's like, why are you parking over here? I go, well, you see that tree? It could fall on us. That's how my brain constantly thought. I thought that if I was constantly in this hypervigilance, I could foresee the things in front of me that might cause death, which caused a lot of hurt and pain. And so I would adjust it and I could control it. At least I'd do everything in my power to control it. And then my brother Craig dies on Easter, and nobody knows why. And they're starting to figure it out, and they think it may be an undetectable, zero-symptom genetic disorder. That's their best guess right now. Nothing in my hypervigilance could have seen that. And the gift of that is that hypervigilance stopped working for me. And I got very clear that I don't control all these surroundings. And I got very clear that I never have, and I don't need to continue that way of living. And so now I have an opportunity to go into the ocean, and the first chance I get, I am in that ocean, and I am neck deep, and I am laughing and having a great time. And I'm not worried about sharks. Not at that point. I'm having fun. And I'm realizing I'm wading into deeper and deeper water, and I'm allowing myself to be there without fear. Because the flip side of hypervigilance is basically fear. And when you live in that sense of fear, it is draining your battery constantly. It's like having 16 windows open on your phones. Trust me, people, if you don't understand this question, I'll help you afterwards. It's draining your battery. And I lived under that circumstance for 26 years. I had this draining battery happening. And I realized that when I look back at my sweet, vulnerable self of 26 years ago, I can see how hard she was working all this time. I could see that she did that under the idea that she could control her surroundings so she could protect her brothers. And I realized it was okay to let go of that. And I realized that I had created a convincing distraction for myself. A distraction from the truth of my being, which is I am always okay. And we are all always okay. And that we are our awareness. We are not this body. And so Maui started to show me that in spades because I was finally ready to really experience it. Not just see it, not read about it in a book, but to really experience it for what it was. I realized how many times I had kept myself in the shallows. I had done that and I asked other people to join me there so we could all be safe together. And I realized there were times when I wanted and I did go into deeper waters, but I was always so quick to return to the shallows. And one day we were swimming in the ocean and we were in the shallows and the wind kicked up. And I had been on the beach actually first, and the sand, it was like being sandblasted. I was like, why does everything hurt? Oh, I'm being blasted with sand. And the best solution was to get in the water. And so we got in the water and we did this. But then getting in the water with the wind so strong, all of the waves kept tossing us because we were so trying to stand up, which was resisting the flow of the waves. So then we would knock over. And it was interesting to see how that matched my own life. How many times have I thought I need to stand here to be safe and resisting the flow of life? How many times? Now, I'm not alone here, right? Some of you are relating to that. Yeah. I mean, I might, again, do it in 10 minutes. I'm not exempt from it. It's not like a one and done. But I realized these waves were just crashing around us. And it was so interesting to take the next piece. So the next day, actually, we were going to go snorkeling. And I had been snorkeling before in Mexico where we swam out to this reef and it was gorgeous and the reef protected us from sharks and it kept us, in a lot of beautiful fish, and we were still able to mostly be in water that was very shallow that we felt like we could control. And it was a beautiful snorkeling experience. But now we were getting on a boat. And we were going about an hour out, and we were going to deep waters, and we were going to snorkel in deep waters. And I was super excited because I love to snorkel. And then later that day, we went to the aquarium, and I'm sitting at a program with a marine biologist staring at a tank of sharks. And I was like, this may not be my smartest choice. So I thought, no, I can face this fear. And so I raised my hand and I asked the marine biologist, because she would know. I said, what happens in the water when you encounter a shark? Like, what should you do? And, in my mind, I'm thinking elbow to the throat, poke the eyes, get away. And then I'm thinking, I don't even know if you have time to do that. And she says, well, with tiger sharks, which are most prevalent in these waters, you just grab their nose and redirect them. With my bare hand? Grab their nose and redirect. And I thought, well, that's interesting. So when something is coming after me, I could just redirect. I don't have to be in the fear moment. I can just redirect. In fact, being fearful is actually not in your favor at that moment. You need to keep a clear head and redirect. A shark. You're hearing me, right? So I said, okay, tiger sharks, got it. We're not their main meal. Great. What about this thing called great white sharks? What about those? She's like, well, they're really not in these waters. It's too warm for them here. So they've already migrated away. And I'm like, all of them? Are you sure? And then I have that conversation. I think, you know what, Natalie, you can be brave. You do not sell your fun experience to fear. Do not do that right now. Okay. We go and we sit in this IMAX theater, and it's about whales, and it's a domed ceiling, and we're wearing 3D glasses as these huge humpback whales come right floating over top of us. And it was so lifelike. And all of a sudden, you're eye to eye with this huge whale, and you realize their eyeball is bigger than your head. And I thought, I was all focused on sharks. What about whales? I mean, it's not like they have a quick rudder or something. They move slowly. I don't think if they're coming toward me, I got to get out of the way. She's like, the whales have already migrated away. And the whales are here in May. And they would not, they wouldn't hurt you. You're not what they prefer to eat. I was like, okay, all right. So I get out on the boat. I go snorkeling. We're going snorkeling. It's me, Ward, our friend Jen. Johnny decided this is the day he was going to be Spider-Man in his videos, so he did not go with us. And we get out to this beautiful place, and we see a monk seal, which is extinct, or going extinct, not extinct, but on the endangered list. And it's sunbathing. And they're like, this is a huge find. Nobody gets to see these monk seals. And I'm just like, I'm a magnet. Of course we get to see them. And then they said, well, we're going to be in this place where you're going to probably see sea turtles. And so I was like, okay, great. So we get there, and they stop the boat and they anchor. And you can see like all the water is super clear. And it's like 30 feet deep. And they're like, all right, here's your gear. Here's your flippers. Here's your snorkel. Here's a pool noodle so you don't have to swim very hard. And jump on in. And so we did. And we are in this water, and you put your face in the water and you can breathe through the snorkel. And all of a sudden, I was like this mermaid, and I was breathing underwater, and I was flipping around, and there were fish everywhere. Now, I don't know about you, but in my Great Lake experience, usually fish like to come. And if they're close to you, they don't mind nipping at you a little bit. They don't mind coming too close where you're like, do not get in my swimsuit. These fish weren't like that. They were just gorgeous fish, minding their business, living their best life. And I got to experience it. And then at one point, we did see a sea turtle, and it was super exciting. And then something happened for me. I was there. I was breathing. It felt like I was breathing underwater. I felt the waves start to go. But I was in deeper water. And so the waves just carried me. They didn't thrash me about because I wasn't resisting. And I just kept rolling with these waves. And all of a sudden, it was like I forgot I had a body at all. My awareness just became one with everything that was there. If somebody would have been able to say, Natalie, you became a fish, I'd be like, yep, that happened. Because I felt so one with the fish that were there. And there were different schools of fish. And then there was beautiful coral. And I just kept having this overwhelming feeling of oneness. And I wasn't afraid of sharks. I remember looking as far as I could see around me. And there were no big fish, but I thought, if that tiger shark came, I feel so one with this ocean, the redirection would feel natural. And there were swimmers that were there, and sometimes swimmers get a little close, and it was easy to redirect. And it was easy to reshape and move through this water. And as I kept forgetting I had a body, I had this feeling of euphoria start to just rise up within me. And this oneness became so powerful. I was in this space of just sheer elation to just be in the water with these beautiful fish, but more importantly, being one with everything. And that flow felt so amazing. And the next thing I knew, I looked up and Ward, my safety partner, was on the boat, and people were getting on the boat and leaving. Not leaving, but getting out of the water. And I thought, I guess I got to swim back to the boat. And I kind of go over and I was like, so are we getting lunch and then staying? She goes, oh no, you have about 15 minutes left. And she's like, so I'll take your gear. I go, oh no, I got 15 more minutes. I went back out and just stayed with that again. I felt so part of the oneness in a way that I had never experienced before, in a way that no book could ever share with me, in a way that even wading out neck deep wasn't going to give me. I had to get out of the shallows, and I had to get into deep waters. And there was this meeting of God within that was very powerful. And I understood that in this life, we are called to deeper waters. And those waters don't just necessarily have to be in Maui. That the deeper waters I was experiencing were actually all right here. And that it was so important for me not to be afraid or to give myself distractions, but to really get clear and get into the deep water, because there in the deep water, I could be in the flow. And it was a flow like none other. And I came out of that experience with a sense of, and I sort of mentioned it earlier, but I had this sense of my own spiritual authority. Meaning I knew the God within. And I knew how connected we were. And I had a deeper understanding of the oneness that we are, that we talk about here. And nothing from that point forward looked the same. Just didn't. And if I could put you all in water right now, I would. And it's summer, so maybe you should think about finding some water. Even if it's your bathtub, fill it up. Put a lot of Epsom salts. That'll help you float. It's so interesting how just having this experience shifted something within me. And I was so excited to repeat the experience. So the next day, we had the condo we stayed in, she supplied snorkel gear. And I was like, hey, I'm just going to go right back out into it. And so the next day, my friend Jen and I found this beach, and we went out into the beach. I've got my flippers on, if you can imagine, and my mask, and we are swimming out, and the waves are just crashing us and crashing us. And the beach we chose was super rocky because it had coral, and we wanted it to have coral. But when you are not deep enough and you're in the waves, that coral almost pierced me. Like, I skinned my knee and then rolled, and I thought, I'm going to be impaled on this coral. And I thought, how many days have I felt that? How many days have I felt tossed around and like I wasn't in deep enough water? And so what was happening beneath the surface was very hurtful, or if it brought me right back into fear. And I tried to go back up on shore. And as I'm trying to get up on shore, these waves are pounding me and pounding me. And at one point, I lose my footing, and I just barrel rolled right onto the beach very gracefully. None of my friends noticed. Apparently, there was a news article that was very important. And I finally, with all my strength, stand up, take my flippers off, and walk up the beach. And I realize I am full of sand. There is sand everywhere. And I'm so cranky about it, and I'm uncomfortable. And I was trying to recreate this euphoric experience. And here I am, clearly nearly, agitated at the very least. And I go and I sit, and of course, because I had been out in the water, they moved the umbrella, and let's not pretend I'm not super transparent. So I need to be under the umbrella in the sun, and I'm sitting there. So it was like one thing after the other lined up, and I'm feeling cranky as all get out. And I'm just like, well, this is a very different experience. And I thought, just sit here for a minute, Natalie. Remember the peace that you had. Just remember. And as I sat there in a suit full of sand, I thought, you know what? What the ocean giveth, the ocean can take away. So I put on my water shoes and I marched right back out into that ocean, and I totally aired out that whole suit and got rid of all the sand. And I thought, I could have sat in there and tried to personally shake out all the sand, and I could have tried to get rid of it that way. But somehow just returning to the water was important. But before I ever returned to the water, in my mind, I returned to that understanding of peace. Resonate with anyone? Yeah. So the ocean was a great teacher for me. And it was a great teacher in the sense that when I realized the ocean giveth and the ocean taketh away, I'd stopped judging the fact that what has happened was wrong, that I shouldn't have barrel rolled onto the beach, that I shouldn't have to deal with this suit full of sand, that my friends should have been doing something a little different. Come on. That the situation was exactly perfect. I was still in that awareness. And the quicker I got back to that fully being aware, the more things just floated. The more things just felt better all around me. The more I felt back in alignment with my Christed sense of self. And so I've got a challenge for you this week. And the challenge is to be deliberate in your understanding. What I mean by that is I want you to look for places in your life where your swimsuit's full of sand, where things may be agitating you, where things may be frustrating, where things may be not just where they want. And I really would like for you to float in water. And if you can't get in the water, the next best thing is at least get into meditation. And I want you to picture those things floating and floating and floating. And they don't have to float away. They can just float with you. And you can be in the flow where you can see them differently, where they can show up differently, where your awareness can sometimes get so expansive you can forget you are a body. And you can fully remember you are God. Are you with me? If you are willing to face your swimsuit of sand and float this week, either in water or in meditation, I want you to turn to your partner and say, yes. Turn to somebody and say it like you mean it. I'm sorry, what? Okay. All right. I expect a full report next Sunday. I love that you are here with me today, and I can't wait to hear how this goes for you, how this expansion shifts and moves your life, and how being in the flow together is shifting and moving this community. So we don't have to change what's happening in our surroundings. We don't have to do that. We have the opportunity to change within. And that will change the entire experience for everyone. Let us pray into the oneness. Eternal loving presence, here in heaven, hallowed be our holy name. Our kingdom has come. Divine will is always being done on earth. May we realize heaven. May we know we are of source and our every need and desire is already ours. Source is all there is. And as source, we are abundant givers and receivers. May we live from the oneness and recognize we are always connected to one another. Allow divine thoughts to express through us and deliver us from the broken thoughts of separation. For ours is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, now and forever. And so it is. Amen. Oh, thank you.
I'm in the right place at the right time. I am just where I'm supposed to be.